Good morning, everyone. Okay, welcome everyone to another new week. We'll continue with our book reading this morning, The Toyota Way to Service Excellence by Jeffrey K. Liker and Karen Rose. Last week, we looked at Principle 13, Developing Skills and Mindset through Practicing Kata. We looked at the root cause, we looked at the way our brain works. We also looked at Kata to practice towards mastery, that is swords making example, where he defined kata as the practice routine that allows us to build effective habits. On page 271, we'll continue from there, still talking about kata to practice towards mastery. So Perry also explained something that I admit was kind of embarrassing to me. As someone known as a Toyota Way expert, he says, if you try to take knowledge that is the real learned with body kind and write it down, put it in a box as done in most school system nowadays, and you try to pass knowledge around, that is teach. You are losing the essence. You're losing the important subtleties that makes this knowledge useful. And here, my main professional accomplishment has been putting the Toyota Way into a box. I can hear my readers now. You tell us. Perry further explained. That's why martial arts are learned through kata, an actual repetition of the movement, not the explanation of the movement during kata. The real model, the sensei, watches and corrects. He refines your practice until your kata is perfect. When writing the Toyota Way to Lean Leadership, I was excited when I discovered that notions of shuhari, which are 3 phases of mastering a skill. Perry describes this as a Western construction that you rarely hear about in Japan and can be misunderstood as linear process. The idea is that in the shu phase, you are copying the role model exactly without questioning. You are imitating specific pattern. When you practice it enough in the ha stage, it becomes natural. Like the basic skills of riding a bike. You do not have to think about the basics. They are now routines embedded in long-term memories. The re phase, you begin to innovate with new ways of doing things. Perry agrees you have to start someplace in the shu phase. But after that, you could be alternating between the ha phase and the shu phase, or even the re phase, and returning periodically to the shu phase to brush up the basic techniques. The shu phase is where the concept of kata comes in. Basic practice routines. This, he says, is also a Western construction of trying to make sense of the Japan, but he likes the idea, as he explained. I love the expression, fake it until you feel it. Fake it until you can feel it. If you do not agree or you do not understand something, you can still do it. Just accept to do it. And at some point, it may become natural for you to do it, and you'll be the first to say that this is the best way to do something. This is why learning with the body and learning with the mind are very different. When you learn with your body and you have a whole set of sense and emotions that comes into play, which doesn't happen when you learn with your mind, the idea of kata is very interesting, because instead of trying to convince somebody to adopt managerial or work practices, you get them to fake it at some point or just do it without asking questions, or maybe without agreeing. but they get to assimilate, sorry, and do it naturally. They get to assimilate continuous improvement practices into their routine and then reach the goal without any specific effort. It becomes natural for them. When Perry was explaining his experience to me, he made one thing clear. To begin his immersion in learning swordsmaking, he needed a high level of trust in the master teacher. Early on, he had to prove to the master he was worthy of being taught. Often, it seems the other way in the West. The teacher must convince the student he is worthy of teaching. For that reason, Perry senses an advantage in Japanese culture for the type of mentor apprenticeship model we are talking about. Trust your mentor, trust your community. People trust those older than them all their life. The craftsmanship culture is alive throughout Japan. Okay, this is all stuff for our reading this morning. Still talking about developing skills and developing mindset. Like what it explained to us last week. Say Kata are the practice routine that allows us to build effective habits. And where we've just read this morning has given us ways and examples of how to, you know, practice routines that help you to develop and build healthy, effective habits. Just from what I learned from this book, you have to be curious and ready to learn. Like it's give an example of the Japanese culture and the Western culture. In the Japanese culture, you have to prove to your sensei that you really want to learn and you're worthy of learning. While in the Western culture, the teacher has to convince the student that he's worthy of teaching, that he can teach, or he or she has you know, he has what the student wants. So the lean transformation or lean leadership here is based on the Japanese culture, where you have to be ready to learn, you have to be curious to learn. Secondly, you have to be focused. Focus here being that you have to be open minded, like learn, be ready to take in whatever you're being taught with your full body. You get a whole lot of experiences. The third thing I learned here is that you don't just get the knowledge, there's also room for practicing. There's also room for theory. It's not just objective, there's room for theory. So what you learn, you have to practice it. So that is what we've learned from this our book reading this morning. Thank you.